Oh boy, another obscure movie that no one's ever heard of. That'll bring the subscribers running. In today's episode, we will be taking a closer look at 1995's science fantasy film, The City of Lost Children. The City of Lost Children is, by far, the strangest addition to my collection. And that's really saying something, because I have a movie about talking mold in my collection.
My name's Ian.
Oh, the mold knows, Jack. The mold knows.
But whereas something like motivational growth rejects any basic narrative structure in lieu of abstract symbolism, The City of Lost Children still attempts to maintain classical storytelling conventions. At the same time, though, it doesn't hold back, often giving the feeling that anything could happen at any time, no matter how insane or out there it might seem. For example, let me describe just one of the minor subplots in this movie. A pair of Siamese twins who are joined at the hip call themselves the Octopus, and they run a sort of crime syndicate where they use children to rob people on the streets or break into their homes. But it goes further than that. There's this cult that's wandering around that kidnaps children, known as the Cyclops, who blind themselves and use technology to enhance their other senses. Now, the Octopus is old friends with a man named Marcello, who owns pet fleas that can be fitted with a strange substance, which, when injected into someone, grants him the ability to control them with his street organ. Do you see how off-the-wall crazy this is? So if I don't like the movie's story, or it doesn't make sense, then why have it in my collection? It's an outlier in comparison to the other movies that I enjoy, which are usually very story-centered. So what makes this different? The only way that I can accurately describe The City of Lost Children is that it's like a fever dream after being poisoned by a Telosian pufferfish. This is a movie with an extremely surreal, dreamlike quality to it that you'll find nowhere else. And it's certainly something that will never be captured again. Because it's not just the strange characters and odd sequences of events that lend it to this otherworldly feeling. It's also because it's a product of its time. Being made in 1995, it very much looks its age. This movie's as old as I am. The effects are rough and very primitive, but that just adds to its bizarre essence. Because if this were made today, this would all just be CGI. But here it's this strangely beautiful blend of practical effects, green screen, and CGI, which puts it squarely in the uncanny valley. And that works to its advantage. But with this being a foreign film, that means that if you want to watch it in English, you have to watch it dubbed. Of course, this means that the words never match up with the lips, but that's never really bothered me much because it only adds to the movie's weirdness. The movie stars Ron Perlman in one of the leading roles, who most people will recognize from Hellboy. I always enjoy watching him in whatever he's doing, but I find his performance here in particular incredibly fascinating. He started acting as a stage performer, and that really shows here since it was so early in his career. His over-the-top, almost caricature-like portrayal signifies this, but it also suits the character he's playing. He plays a strongman named One, who teams up with one of the street urchins to save his little brother, who he just calls Little Brother, from the Cyclops, which seems like a very straightforward storyline, but I haven't even touched on my favorite subplot of this movie. A mad scientist named Crank has lost the ability to dream. Now you can interpret this however you like, as in he doesn't dream when he sleeps, or perhaps he has no ambition or imagination. It's actually kept quite vague, along with everything else in this movie. But in an attempt to fix this, he buys children from the Cyclops to experiment on. He's joined by a small woman, a talking brain, and a series of strange clone men who bicker among themselves over who's the original. The two plots progress throughout the movie before ultimately merging together at the end in what I can only describe as pure nightmare fuel. And at this point, I gotta say, the score for this film is absolutely mesmerizing. I know YouTube will demonetize my video for showing this, but forget that, you've got to hear this. Here are a couple of clips from two of my favorite tracks. This music fits so well with this film, whisking you away with its childlike wonder. It's this light but haunting soundscape that's just perfect. But with all that said, there really isn't much else to say. On a technical level, the movie is very intelligently shot. For example, instead of telling us via exposition dump why these two women are known as the octopus, it's shown to us through the cinematography. And I really appreciate that, because that's not something that you see a lot anymore. Visual storytelling is a dying art. Of course, on the other side of the coin, the child actors in this are simply awful. And yeah, what do you expect? They're kids. They have no deeper understanding of subtle or nuanced acting. But putting that aside, I would highly recommend giving this a watch, as it really should be more appreciated than it is. It's a film that manages to capture such a unique feeling, and certainly leaves you in a disembodied state of awe. It can feel a bit long at times, but it's an experience that you'll never find again. And with that in mind, I couldn't recommend it more. Alright, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if you did, be sure to check out the other episodes in this series. And maybe hit the bell down there? Just a thought.